Hello and welcome back to Bitesize Boxing. So fresh off the video I made the other day about Naoya Inoue and his impressive win against MJ Akhmadaliev, we have got an announcement for Saturday the 27th of December for a big Riyadh season card being billed as the Night of the Samurai. And I think that gives you a clue as to the kind of fighters that are on it. A pretty much exclusively Japanese fighter dominated card over in Riyadh just after Christmas. Now, I'm a massive proponent of these cards, not just the fact that, of course, we're going to get to see a lot of Japanese fighters that we otherwise wouldn't get to see in the West and in the Anglosphere, which I think is brilliant, but also the fact that they're doing these cards in and around Christmas. I've really enjoyed the last few that they've done, and it gives you something to look forward to in and around Christmas as well. That's quite nice. So I'm a massive fan of this, and yeah, it's brilliant. You're going to have Christmas Day, and then on the Saturday, I'll be able to kick back and watch some great boxing. So what isn't to like there? So very happy about that. And also more on that sort of Japanese factor. As I was saying in that video I did the other day, I want to be able to follow more Japanese boxing. I enjoy Japanese boxing whenever I have watched it. But it's one of those things, because we don't get the broadcasters here that put it on, even though it's on at weird times often, sometimes it can be, midday on a Tuesday or something like that. Other than Sky, who will occasionally pick up like an Inoue fight, these cards just don't get picked up. They don't get broadcasted here. So you unless you know that they're on and you know the right places to look and, down the rabbit hole somewhere on Dailymotion or something, you might find a copy somewhere for 5 minutes before it gets taken down. You're not going to find these fights. They're not going to be uploaded on YouTube by any broadcasters because no one's picked them up. And even trying to find any kind of stream for a lot of these fights, again, you're not going to be able to find them because in the sort of West and the Anglosphere, again, these fights just aren't really spoken about. And because they're not publicised, they're not on the broadcasters because the broadcasters haven't got them, not publicised, and vice versa. Before you know it, you've got these big cards which are selling out arenas in Tokyo that we don't even know about unless it involves Inoue. And I think that's a crying shame, really. So I'm very happy to see that we've got some big Japanese boxing being bought for us here in Riyadh. So I'm looking forward to it. But of course on this card as well, I would be remiss of me to not mention straight away, we don't just have Naoya Inoue versus David Picasso, which, again, David Picasso is a fighter that I haven't really seen before, I'll be really honest with you. He's one of those, he's got a glossy record, but he's been fighting over in Mexico predominantly, as have a lot of the opponents on this card. And with a lot of these Mexican fighters, you don't really know what you're getting. They have been fighting in Mexican club fights, and look, Mexican club fights are far tougher. They get matched far harder than we do over here in, for example, Britain. That's why when we have seen, a 15-0, British fighter go up against a 17-3 Mexican fighter, more often than not, things don't end well. That's happened with many, many prospects and even high-level fighters over in Britain as well. Let's not forget Mauricio Lara. I remember watching him hit the bag and doing a bit of pad work in the lead up to that fight, and I just thought, this guy's rubbish. And then he got in the ring and, well, we saw what he did. So this is what I mean, in that you do get these fighters from Mexico that they haven't necessarily always got the glossy record. In this case, to be fair, Picasso has, but they've been fighting in Mexico in relative obscurity. But that being said, they're still very, very good fighters because of the level they've been fighting at. They've been fighting these more obscure Mexican fighters, but these Mexican fighters are oftentimes at the level of a lot of, British to more closer to European level fighters. So again, I think that that's not necessarily a walk in the park, but I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of David Picasso. A lot of these Mexican fighters generally you won't see a lot of unless they maybe have 1 or 2 fights in the US and then maybe a broadcaster picked that up and you might be able to find a copy on YouTube or some highlights, but generally you're not going to really be able to get a massive gauge on a lot of these fighters. But yeah, so we've got obviously Naoya Inoue versus David Picasso at the top of the bill. That's interesting. We'll see how that goes. Of course, I do expect Inoue to get through that. But we'll see what happens. Now, I think this will be chief support, or at least third on the card, underneath the Kenshiro fight, if not. And that is, of course, Junto Nakatani fighting Sebastian Reyes. Reyes, again, being another one of these slightly more obscure Mexican fighters who've been fighting over in Mexican club fights. Again, I have no doubt is no walk in the park. And Junto Nakatani, of course, that is the Japanese super fight that we're all working towards. That's the one that I said that even though it is an all-Japanese fight, even though it doesn't involve a marquee American name, it's one of those that Nakatani has looked so impressive, even against some of the opposition he's been in with that hasn't always been the greatest. He's looked so impressive, he's looked so dynamic, he's looked like somebody who although he's been always a weight or division to, you know, below Inoue. He's someone that you look at and you think, yeah, if they do marry up and they end up in the same division, it's a really interesting fight, and it's a Japanese super fight. There's no other way to describe it. It's our AJ Fury when it was in their primes. You know what I mean? It's a super fight. So for me, the fact that Nakatani's on this card, I think it points towards something. It does point towards that, you know, if these guys both get through their next fight, hopefully Riyadh season can put something together so we actually get a fight between Inoue and Nakatani, which would be fantastic, and I'd be all for that. So hopefully we see that, but we've also got the return of Satsumi as well, who will be fighting Jazza Dickens. Jazza Dickens, of course, we know here in Britain, a trial horse, I think is the best way to describe Jazza Dickens. 36-5 at this point, knocked out 4 times. I think at this point he is probably a bit too long in the tooth. I don't think this fight's going to end too well for him. But again, it's an interesting fight. We know what Jazza Dickens is going to bring. He's going to bring pressure. He's going to bring it. He's going to go out on his shield. And look, in fairness to him, Dickens is coming off of quite a good fight over in Istanbul where he beat a prospect. So that was where he was very much being brought in as the opponent. And if you've seen that fight, he absolutely demolished the guy in about 4 rounds and just walked through him. Very impressive by Jazza Dickens. So coming off the back of that, it'll be a good test for Satsumi. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. And look, there's a couple of other fights on this card. Let me just get it up in front of me. Yeah, so you've got a Manga, who I assume is another Japanese fighter. Yes, he is. And he's in there against, I believe... Oh no, I was going to say another Mexican, a Cuban fighter who's 16-0. So again, on paper, that looks like a good fight. And another guy called Satsumi, I don't know if he's related to Hayato, but he's 3-0, and he's going in there against a guy called Sanchez, who of course is another one of these battle-hardened Mexicans. So yeah, from top to bottom, a pretty cool card. I think you've, of course, Chief Support, you've got Koncharo Taraji versus Perez. Again, another one of these battle-hardened Mexican fighters. Yes, he's got a few losses, but as I said earlier, a lot of these guys, they're fighting Mexican club fights that are really gritty and tough, so I have no doubt he's going to be of a decent level as well. So yeah, of course we know Koncharo, so I think it's going to be a good night of boxing. It's exciting, and look, I'm all for it, I'm happy for it, and the chance for me to be able to see more sort of Japanese boxing, it's good, because although I predominantly talk about, you know, a lot of the marquee names on this channel and heavyweights and stuff like that, because ultimately that's what people are interested in. I want to be able to broaden my horizons and be able to watch more of these lower weight fighters, because again, I want to be a boxing channel that talks about all these weights, all these guys, and unfortunately here in the West we just don't get exposed to it. Even as a hardcore boxing fan like myself, you go below what, 130, and my knowledge on these fighters is relatively patchy, if I'm honest, because again we just don't get any of it here, predominantly because a lot of the fighters from here tend to be bigger guys, and thus they're not in these weight divisions, so we don't see much of them. I mean, barring what, Sonny Edwards and Cal Yafai, we've not really seen anyone down in the real lower weights for many years here, so it's good, and I'm all for this, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this fight night, and yeah, it's brilliant. So I want to know what you guys think. I'll be interested to know. Are you guys looking forward to this one as much as I am? Do you guys know a little bit more about some of these fighters than maybe I do, particularly some of these more obscure Mexican fighters? I'd be quite intrigued to know, and if there's anyone I should look out for on this card, if you think there's any potential upsets, it'd be good to know. But yeah, you take it easy, guys. Cheers.